Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had yourself a great weekend. I did. It was kind of drizzly, didn't get a whole lot accomplished, a few things around the house, but mostly enjoyed seeing my grandkids and all of that kind of stuff. Pretty much a restful weekend. So I hope you had a blessed one. Mine certainly was. Got a great show for you today. We're going to start out with states fighting back against the Biden agenda. You know, I've been telling you now, and I'm going to expand upon it a little bit today, that the action is going to be in the states. The states, if we're going to slow down this progressive takeover of the United States of America, it's going to have to be done at the state level right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, one of the people that is a rising star in the Republican Party is my very own governor, Ron DeSantis. And we're going to talk a little bit about an article that's out about whether or not Mr. DeSantis is the heir apparent to the MAGA movement. We'll get into some of that. But before we go any further, we always have to talk about our sponsors that make all of this happen. Our number one sponsor is BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited, and they are your Second Amendment headquarters. No matter when or where you're watching our show, our video, look above it, and you will see a link, not only a description to what we're talking about, but links to our sponsors, including Big Daddy Unlimited. As I say, they're your Second Amendment headquarters because they get you factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition. I do know they just got a shipment in. I saw it on Facebook over the weekend of some ammunition. I can't tell you what the status is. I don't know anything about the details of it. I do know that they are constructing their own ammunition factory literally as we speak. So Big Daddy Unlimited is determined to be your Second Amendment go-to place, because not only do they sell you guns and ammunition at factory direct pricing, but over 100,000 other items, including tactical gear, survival stuff, even swag. And they defend your Second Amendment on a daily basis. So check out Big Daddy Unlimited. Then we have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. They are a total fulfillment center. What that means is they can design t-shirts with a patriotic theme for your charity organization, even for you individually. But they work with things like if you want to have, say, a golf tournament and you want to put out a t-shirt for that golf tournament that will help you raise money for the charity of your choice, patriotthreads.org will put all of that together for you. And they'll give you a 20% discount if you use the promo code JMT. So the initials of our show, John Martin Talks, JMT, 20% off. Check it out. Recoil TV, we have a growing relationship with Recoil TV. They have their own YouTube channel, Recoil TV YouTube. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. We always need more subscribers and views there. But Recoil TV is also all about the Second Amendment. They have a whole line of videos on the latest equipment, gear, how to use it, that type of stuff. You can't go wrong with Recoil TV. And they archive our show there on a daily basis. So that's a good place to go to watch us. All right, let's move along here into the actual story portion of the show. Let me get a little... Oh, and in case I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I've been getting a lot of well wishes over the weekend and stuff. I didn't have a time to respond to many of them, but I will. I promise you. I talked about how I am recovering from COVID-19. I'm out of the infectious stage. I talked in depth about it on Thursday. Check out our podcast, and you can see it there. Probably the best place to go is to our YouTube channel. As I say, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. But I am steadily recovering. I feel really pretty much 100%. A little bit like I need more naps and those kind of things, which I understand is a typical side effect of this. But I am feeling really well. And I know a lot of y'all have been indicating you're praying for me and my family, and I am truly grateful for that. All right, let's get into it. This is a Politico story. Republican AGs, in other words, attorney generals, take blowtorch to Biden's agenda. Now, this first gentleman up here that we're showing, he's actually kind of representative of the attorney generals, Republicans, period. He is the vice president of their national association. His name is Eric Schmidt. He's the attorney general of Missouri, and he currently has at least one suit against the Biden administration. I think it really has a lot to do with the closing of the XL pipeline, and I want to say there's about 17 others that have signed off on it. But this is the tactic that the Republicans are using to fight back against Biden and the progressives' agenda. With their party out of power in the White House and Congress, the nation's 26, think about that, 26 Republican attorneys general have emerged as the weapons division of the GOP, powerful force, reprising a role played by Democrat AGs during the Trump era. So it's important to note that this is nothing new. The Democrats did the same thing against Donald Trump, and so the Republicans are taking a little bit from that era, although they did similar stuff under the Obama administration. Just as Democratic AGs served as the vanguard of the blue state resistance, Republican AGs are leading the charge to stymie President Joe Biden's policy-making agenda. Well, first of all, this is our best hope for slowing down and hopefully stymieing or stopping the progressive agenda. As you know, if you've been watching the show, my stated goal, and it is the same now, and it has been since the election, I really have one goal, and that is to stop the progressive takeover of this great country. I just want to stop it. At the very least, we got to slow it down until we can make some changes. But I want to stop it. So I judge everything. I don't care if you're running for dog catcher or all the way up to the White House. You might not say it's fair, but it's the reality of the world I feel like I'm in now, that I judge you based on that. How does your proposal stop the progressive takeover of the United States of America? Because to me, that's what's happening. And as far as like the Biden agenda, now I get it. I even just said the words Biden agenda. But, you know, Joe Biden, I've been saying this for a while, going all the way back to before November 3rd for months. I was telling you then, and I still believe it's true, that if the election come November 3rd was actually about Joe Biden, he couldn't win. There's no way he could win. And the election turned out not to be about Joe Biden. It was about a referendum to a certain extent on President Trump. I would say overall he passed that referendum. And it was about all the shenanigans, we don't say the F word here, but the mod. You know, we presume there was some voter mod going on. No F words here. Got to watch out for old algorithm. But it wasn't really about Joe Biden. If you disagree with me, tell me where I'm wrong. Chime in on Facebook, chime in on YouTube. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. You don't have to always agree with me, and a lot of people don't. I don't like people who just troll and hate on people. But if you have a legitimate debate you would like to have a little bit, I'll go a little bit of tit for tat with you. But here's what I want you to do. Tell me if the election was about Joe Biden. Tell me in a paragraph or so why you believe Joe Biden was the best choice without, here's the caveat, you cannot mention Donald Trump at all. I want to hear about Joe Biden because I have yet still to hear anybody that is passionate about Joe Biden. They're very passionate still against Donald Trump and his supporters. I hear that a lot. And that could have been a major, if not the major factor in why Donald Trump lost the president, aside from the mod and stopping the squeal. We try to rhyme things. But tell me in your own words, if you support Joe Biden, why? And do you still? I'd like to hear that. Without mentioning Donald Trump. But Biden's agenda, that's what I wanted to get to real quick. I would tell you right now, Joe Biden has already accomplished really the only agenda he ever had. And that was to become president of the United States. That has been Joe Biden's goal, and I'm not knocking him for it. My dad used to say every boy ought to grow up wanting to be president of the United States, girls too, of course. And Joe Biden has wanted to be president probably since before he ran for the U.S. Senate, certainly ever since he got a taste of power. He's been pursuing the White House for half a century, basically. And he got there by hook, crook, maud, whatever, squealing, I don't know. He got there. He is the president of the United States. It does my heart no joy to say that whatsoever. But Biden, in my opinion, has accomplished his agenda. Now, maybe the Joe Biden of, 20 years ago might have had his own agenda. But this Joe Biden just wanted to be president. Now, I'm not saying there's not an agenda in the Biden administration. That's two different things. I think, as I said earlier, I think Mike Pence actually quoted this a long time ago, that Joe Biden was a Trojan horse in essence, and that the people inside that horse is the ones we had to worry about. And I think he was right then, and I think he's been proven right now. That it's all the different people that are writing the policies behind Joe Biden, his decrees and all, that make it so. Now, I don't know if you saw this video over the weekend. If you watched any of like Fox News or Newsmax, you probably saw this. But Joe Biden over the weekend, I was scared for him. I'm going to show you this video of him trying to board Air Force One. He slips 3 times. On the third slip, man, he almost went to the bottom. And keep in mind when you're watching this, and I'm not going to play the other video, but Donald Trump had a video of him at West Point while he was still president, trying to carefully walk down a ramp. And the press made it out to be like the end of the world and proof that Donald Trump was losing it and should be the 25th Amendment put against him. It's hard to even find a story about Joe Biden's slip and fall on the Air Force One. And it was much more dramatic than anything that ever happened to Donald Trump. I say on his third slip, he almost takes it all the way to the bottom. And the press actually lapped up what the White House said about it. They said the reason Joe Biden slipped was because of strong winds. Now, I don't know if that's a defense or not. Defense that you got blown over by the wind. I don't know if that's a defense, but that's their defense. Anyway, play this and we'll come back and talk. Yep, there he is. There's actually a side shot view of that shows even better that third slip he had, and I'm glad he didn't. But he almost went to the bottom of that thing, and it's going to be interesting to see because I don't think that is an accident in a sense that there's something going on with Joe. Let me tell you, and I heard a few experts talking about this, the stairs going to Air Force One. Now, Biden always tries to impress by running up them. But they have probably the best non-slip surface you could possibly have on them because that's a big fear that people, especially presidents, will actually slip on. There's remember President Ford. He slipped on coming down the steps on like the last 2 and actually fell on his keister. And basically, it pretty much destroyed his presidency. I mean, he was, from that moment on, considered a buffoon. But Joe Biden, no problem. I mean, all the gaffes he's had just even recently, no problem. The press covers it totally different. But the reason is because they don't care about Joe Biden being the president. It's not about that. It's about the power. And they have the power right now, and that's all that matters. So maybe these AGs, attorney generals, are on to something. Here's what Attorney General Eric Schmidt said, and I was telling you, he's from Missouri. He said, "We're standing up and fighting back." Attorney General Eric Schmidt said, who is leading a coalition of states suing Biden over an executive order pertaining to the social cost of greenhouse gas emissions. Some of the things he shut down about that. Republican attorneys generals, said Smith, he's the vice chair of Republican Attorney General Association, play a very important role in the checking and very aggressive administrative state that's been unleashed. Well, I've been telling you for a while. We talked about this some last week, I think Friday's show actually. I am proposing that we have some sense of alliances. And I really believe that we could start right here with leadership with Florida and Texas, a Gulf alliance with, of course, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana kicking in if you see that there. I really believe that the states, the way we're going to prevent the progressive takeover of this country is at the state level. And I don't think we can do it state by state by state. I think we have to join up, team up like they're doing with these attorney generals are doing, and actually sue the federal government over these issues. We have a Supreme Court that presumably might actually be favorable to us, but that jury is still out as well. Only 2 months into Biden's term, the breadth of challenges from Republican-led states to the president's agenda is already expansive, touching on everything from tax policy to climate change and abortion. Now, one of the things that I want to see happen with these alliances, other states could join, I just think that's a natural one at the Gulf, is that it doesn't mean that every state has to take on every issue. States like, say, Texas could be the front point person on some border issues, and Florida could too, for that matter, because people forget we are the port of entry for the Caribbean and South America quite a bit. But Florida, under Ron DeSantis, and he's already doing some of this, could take on issues like big tech, like maybe the shutdowns or forced shutdowns and those kind of mass mandates, those types of things. And then they could pool their resources. So that's what I'm advocating for. 5 Republican attorneys general interjected themselves into his appointment processes, urging when Biden's people that are actually being appointed by Biden, urging Biden to withdraw his nominee for the number 3 position at the Justice Department, Venta Gupta. Now, I don't know anything about Venta, so I'm not going to make any real comment on that. But one of the reasons why these attorney generals are doing what they're doing is not just to stop, as I hope they are, the progressive takeover of the country, but in response to what Biden is doing. Biden has set all kind of records. This was literally like his first day in office, signing these presidential decrees, executive orders, memos, everything. He's by far topped any other president in modern times already, and he's only a couple of months into office. So all of this stuff, like the closing of the XL pipeline example, what's happening at the border right now, none of this has been done by legislative process. It's all coming from basically King Joe. So that actually sets him up for potential lawsuits from these attorney generals with some standing. And so I think you're going to see more and more of this. Back to the article. And the litigation is likely just beginning, as I just said, as Biden and the Democratic-controlled Congress unwind Trump-era policies and begin to implement their own. And we're seeing that at the border right now. You know, it's not supposed. What is it at the border? It's not supposed to be a crisis. I mean, there's like 10 times as many children coming here, unaccompanied minors, as there was already under Biden than there was under Trump. Yet it's not a crisis. It was the disaster of the world. And let me just say this really quickly about children coming to the border. And I hadn't really heard anybody talk about this. Children, unaccompanied. Now, there's some that are unaccompanied, like 16, 17-year-olds, especially males. That's a different category to me, even though they fall under juvenile. But we've got quite a number of like 8, 6, 8, 10-year-olds. 10-year-old children, 8-year-old children. They don't just wake up one day in Honduras and say, oh, I'm going to, walk across Mexico and go to Texas. Somebody is taking those children across that area, because children just don't do that. Now, some of it is cartels directly. taking children. And some of it is, quite frankly, their parents, which I know it's easy to beat them down, but I think what it does is show how desperate these people are. And I don't knock people for trying to get here, man. If I were down in Guatemala facing MS-13 and all that, and knew how great it could be if I could simply get the United States, I would pack up and leave in a heartbeat. So I'm not blaming the migrants, but we have to defend the United States of America. But these children are being trafficked in some form or fashion, either directly by the cartel or indirectly by their own parents that are desperate to get them to the border, get them across, and they don't deport these children. And then their hope is that they'll chain migrate the rest of the family here. That's what's happening here. But they showed that picture of Biden let us in. That's a legitimate picture. Billy Bob tells me, now if you don't know my psychic sidekick, here he is right here, Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And he kind of gives me tips and, breaking news stories. He says that people are actually very excited, because I've been saying that Joe Biden's agenda is like, what? His is president. But Billy Bob is correcting me. He is saying that we have video evidence of just how excited some people are about Joe Biden being the president of the United States. So, Billy Bob, take it away. I think we get the idea. Yeah, there are some people not only sadly desperate, but they're very excited to get here, and they got t-shirts saying Biden let us in. But it's no crisis. It's just a situation. State Attorney General have traditionally assumed a more prominent position in Washington when a president of the other party is in power. I like this from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who was the Attorney General of Texas at one point. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, when he was State Attorney General, sued the Obama administration so frequently that he said in 2013, I go into the office in the morning, I sue Barack Obama, and then I go home. He's probably not too far from the truth. But hey, maybe he's getting his cue from President Joe Biden, because Biden apparently goes in, signs an executive order or two, and then goes to bed. Can you imagine this, ladies and gentlemen? Joe Biden has literally, at least, I'm trying to think back, over the last 2 weeks, at least 4 or 5 times, I don't pay too much attention to this, but sometimes I look at it, that he had only one event, just one event scheduled for an entire day. And not like an 8-hour long event, like an hour, maybe 2 event scheduled, either at the White House or on the road, or just one. You remember even Obama, man, and Bill Clinton, remember when they talked about how he would order pizzas late at night and work around the clock and all that kind of thing? Of course, he was having cigar sessions with Monica. That's a whole nother story. But Obama, he talked about how much he worked all the time. President Trump, I don't know that the man ever slept. It didn't seem like it. But Joe Biden literally has had scheduled one event a day. That's all. I mean, I don't know. You judge it, man. He's definitely not putting in that's why I say, back up a minute. That's why I say I really believe Joe Biden has accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish as far as his personal agenda. He's president. That's all he cares about. The rest, he's taking orders from other people. Years later, Democrats returned the favor, talking about suing people in the White House. Former Attorney General and newly confirmed Health and Human Services Secretary Javier, Biden mispronounced this, Becerra, I think is what he said, and I think it's Becerra is his name alone. But one of the craziest gaffes Biden made recently was the one when he was talking about his Secretary of Defense, his defense secretary. And everybody harped on the fact that he couldn't remember the dude's name, which is bad enough. But what really got me, and I hardly hear anybody talk about this, is Biden couldn't even remember the Pentagon. He literally, go back and look at that video. He literally says, oh, you know, the guy that does what I wanted him to do at that place. I mean, he couldn't even remember the Pentagon, let alone the guy's name. But it says Xavier Becerra, alone when he was Attorney General of California, filed no fewer than 100 lawsuits against the Trump administration on issues ranging from health care and immigration to climate change and gun control. Oh, by the way, did you hear one way to keep them from Biden coming for your guns? Biden take your gun, keep them upstairs. Think about that. He might not be able to slip and slide his way up there, but they are coming for him. That was more obvious than ever in the aftermath of the November election following then President Donald Trump's defeat. It was Texas embattled Attorney General Ken Paxton who led a failed effort by Republican-led states to overturn the election in several battleground states. Now, this is the one where I came up with this meme, Texas had the balls. This was the one suit in the election that could have overturned it and put Donald Trump as president, or certainly gave him a shot to actually be the next president, and get reelected. The Texas case, to me, is the one that is the saddest of all, because the Supreme Court would not refuse to do its job. And I believe it's because it was an act of cowardice. I believe they knew that Texas's case was tried and true, and that if they took up that case and ruled in the favor of Texas and like 20 some other states that had joined with them, that basically the election would be overturned, and they were terrified to do that. That's what I think. Now, here's the big question to me. Will the Supreme Court be willing to hear out these cases from these attorney generals? Because they're going to end up in the Supreme Court almost without question, all of them. I'm holding out hope that they will be on our side, on the side of liberty, because it's not affecting the outcome of a presidential election. I'm not giving them a pass on that, by the way. I'm simply explaining how they did it. But my question too with these attorney generals, because I'm all in favor of this, but I can't help but ask, where were all of them before the election? Because see, this is something, and I know some people don't want to hear this, but I got to be true to myself and true to you. This is one area where I think Donald Trump, the Republican Party, the state legislatures that were controlled in many cases by Republicans, attorney generals, even governors, where they fell short. And that is, they should have seen all of this mod coming at them and all of this squealing that was happening before the actual election, because the Democrats started putting into place what this lawsuit challenged from Texas almost a year before the election, certainly 8 months or more. And there was very little effort that I can see to stop it at that time. Because once the votes were cast, now I'm not questioning whether there was mod and all that. I'm assuming there are tons of it. Because to me, every one of the Texas case centered on the fact that the Constitution lets the states determine the election law, and the only entity is the legislative process in those states. Anything that was changed outside of the legislative process is by its very nature unconstitutional, which was the essence of the Texas case. So I'm not saying that there wasn't plenty of mod to go around. What I am saying is that it's kind of like the trying to put the horse in the barn after he's already left, right? Once the votes were cast, no matter how they were cast, I didn't think they were ever going to get and I'm using a lot of little cliches, but they're true. Once that toothpaste is squeezed out, it's impossible to put it back into the tube. And that's what really happened to President Trump. in my view. And I never held out much hope. My biggest hope, if you were watching the show at the time, was that Texas case. And as I say, when they refused to even listen to the evidence, because they didn't dismiss the case with any kind of evidence, they refused to listen to the evidence because they were afraid it would affect the outcome of the election, and they didn't want to be a part of it. I mean, to me, it's simple as that. I don't agree with it, but that's the way it is. But where were these people, including the president, including the Republican Party, including these attorney generals and state legislatures? Where were they before we started squeezing the toothpaste out? And once that toothpaste came out in the election, I didn't hold out a whole lot of hope that it was going to be overturned. It's just the way it is. All right, let's move along. Alabama's Republican Attorney General Steve Marshall said the extent of Republicans' legal challenges against Biden will depend on how aggressive his administration is. Well, I think we already know that. Largely around executive actions. But GOP attorneys general will not only be attempting to block elements of Biden's agenda, he said, they will also be seeking to preserve the Trump legacy base, keep it from coming unraveled. Trump-era policies that Democrats sued to undo. Well, if you think about it, we're already seeing the evidence of that in what's happening on our border right now. Trump's policies are being ignored or overturned, and it's chaos. And it says, and that Republican attorneys general will now intervene in efforts to preserve. Well, they're asking this question about how much challenge are they going to have to be. I've been telling you about these progressives and warning you about them. One of my axioms is they cannot be negotiated with. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be really anything other than defeated, period. Other than defeat. That's all we can do. From the lowest level to the top, we can defeat them, but we're never going to get them to come to our side. Bipartisanship means Republicans cave. But if you want to know how far Joe Biden is willing to go, take him at his word when he was candidate Joe Biden. Check it out.
I think I have laid out the most detailed plans on the economy and on issues relating to health care and the rest of any president in modern history. I mean, it's awful detail. If I'm elected and this passes, I'm going to be good to go down as one of the most progressive presidents in American history.
There he told you right there. The most progressive president in American history. Take these progressives at their word. You know, and Ben Franklin is absolutely right. When it comes to us in these states that have these attorney generals, I think I said 26 is what the article said, Republican state attorney generals. We have to either hang together or we're going to hang separately, because they're going to come at us. If that's why states like Texas, as great as they are, doesn't need to be out there on their own. We need that Gulf Alliance. We need Florida, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi to come together basically and form a Gulf Alliance. I still believe that. But other states could join us. And no, I'm not talking about secession. That could happen. No, there's no question about it. It could happen. I don't want to see it happen. But I think we have to fight with every single quill we have, every arrow we have. We have to fight. And I think that the attorney generals of these great states is right on time in what needs to happen. Whatever role I can play, I'm willing to play it, because I'm telling you, old Benny's right, man. If we don't hang together, we're going to hang separately. Because that's what the Democrats and the progressives do, right? They tear us apart. They're trying to tear us apart right now. All right, we'll move along now to a NBC News article, and this is talking about one of the governors of one of these great states, happens to be my home state of Florida. Florida's DeSantis positions himself as Trump's heir to the White House. Now, Ron DeSantis is, I flat out, I'm biased. I'm going to tell you now, I think he's the best governor currently in the United States of America. I like Kristi Noem of South Dakota, not knocking South Dakota at all. I love that state. I hope they get Mount Rushmore fireworks. I don't know if you heard that. She's trying to push for them to have fireworks again there. And guess what? The feds are fighting it. Imagine that. But Ron DeSantis, being from the state, I mean, Florida is a powerhouse politically. It is. You just face it, economically and everything else. Ron DeSantis is definitely becoming the heir apparent to the MAGA agenda. Now, I say that understanding that President Trump, he's got the right to do whatever he wants to do and pretty much has my support. He could ride off into the sunset and enjoy his grandchildren like I did this weekend. Every right to do that. I don't predict he's going to do that. Matter of fact, it just came out that he's supposedly within the next 2 months going to launch his own social media site in some form or fashion. I don't have any details of it. The only detail I would say is, hey, President Trump, put John Martin Talks on there, man. We'd make a good team. And if you have any influence out there, let them know. But Ron DeSantis wouldn't be governor of Florida without Donald Trump, according to this article, this NBC News article. Well, I'm here to tell you that's a fact. That is absolutely a fact. And it describes what happened in 2018 pretty accurately. Here's what it said. The then president's endorsement, talking about President Trump in 2018, turned a young congressman into the runaway winner of a Republican primary that featured a far more seasoned establishment favorite, Adam Putnam. Now, keep in mind, Adam Putnam had not only been one of the youngest people to ever serve in the U.S. House of Representatives, but was a 2-time statewide elected Republican Commissioner of Agriculture at the time that he decided to run for governor. That's a extremely strong position. And DeSantis was largely unknown at that time. I actually met Ron DeSantis years ago. I've met him several times, actually. But I met him in a very personal situation at a person's house at a fundraiser back during kind of the heydays of the Tea Party. He was running for Congress for the first time. He's kind of a product of that. And I was impressed with him from day one. So I'm not saying anything negative, but most people, probably even outside of that room, there were probably a lot of people at that little gathering. Now, there's probably about 100 people there that didn't know who he was at all back then. So he has literally come from nowhere politically, really has. But it says here that not quite 3 years later, many in the party since he got elected, see DeSantis as the person best positioned to carry on Trump's legacy as their national standard bearer in 2024. Let me expand upon this paragraph a little bit more. Adam Putnam was considered a shoo-in for governor. There was really no doubt about it. Adam Putnam was considered a shoo-in. I actually went, and there's a picture of the debate. It was part of what they called a Sunshine Summit, which was put on by the Republican Party of Florida. Blaise Ingoglia was our chairman at the time, deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that event. It was an incredible event in Orlando, and I was pretty close to the front of the stage and saw these two guys debate. It was an excellent debate. I was asked at the time by several people who won the debate, and I said, Ron DeSantis. And they said, well, I thought, and I said, well, you're misunderstanding me. To me, a debate, it doesn't matter about the issues. It matters who accomplishes what they needed to accomplish at that time. And Ron DeSantis was on the verge of getting Donald Trump's endorsement at the time of this Fox News debate. And Ron DeSantis carried himself well enough that he was a shoo-in to, or was going to get that endorsement. And once he got that endorsement, the race was over. Adam Putnam probably would have been an excellent governor. I have nothing negative really to say about Adam Putnam. He wasn't as pro-Trump as I thought he should have been. But overall, Adam Putnam is a terrific person, a great leader. And I think had he won the governorship, he was on his way to potentially being president of the United States. I don't think that'll happen now because, elections have consequences. But Ron DeSantis carried himself, and I can tell you, very few people these are hardcore Republicans knew who he really was. But once Donald Trump put it out there, it was over. And you can say whether that's fair or not, it's just fact. Back to this article. It's been a fast rise and even a faster seesaw of political fortunes considering where DeSantis' reputation was early in the coronavirus. I was thinking about it. When I first started talking about Ron DeSantis, I kept saying DeSantos instead of DeSantis. And I had a friend of mine, he called me every day after the show. You didn't say his name right. I said, he's probably going to win. But Representative DeSantis' reputation was early in the coronavirus crisis. They're saying here that he was ridiculed. This is what NBC is saying. Ridiculed and second guessed for rejecting mask mandates and reopening businesses. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that's not true. That statement is not true. Not when it comes to Floridians. And I'm not just talking about Republicans. Ron DeSantis has been highly respected for what he's been doing as governor really since day one. Before even the whole coronavirus thing hit the fan, DeSantis took on one of the most difficult problems out there, the water issues in Florida, like the red tide and the algae bloom. We're not going to get too deep into that. I actually may have played a little role in that because I told some friends of mine that were very close to DeSantis that when you talk to him, tell him he needs to tackle that, him and President Trump, immediately, and he will get a ton of support from people across the state. I'm not saying he did it because I said it, but he did it and it worked out. But Ron DeSantis has really been respected by the majority of Floridians from day one. Now, the media is a whole nother thing about it because he'll take them on. His approach, talking about DeSantis, was compared unfavorably. This is what NBC is saying. Unfavorably to other governors from both parties, including now embattled Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York. DeSantis' popularity in Florida cratered. Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that. Now, there may be some polling out there that shows different. One thing about DeSantis you got to keep in mind, very similar to President Trump. Ron DeSantis will take the media head on, and they don't like it. They don't like it. He challenges them all the time. Very similar. He's a little more nuanced with it, a little more political, polished, whether you like it or not, than President Trump. But the effect is pretty much the same. He will challenge the media no matter what. But Florida has, since the beginning of the pandemic, seen fewer per capita coronavirus. Just think about it. We've been open pretty much the whole time. Capped the coronavirus cases and deaths than many states, including many that instituted the more restrictive measures. Ron DeSantis did the exact opposite of Andrew Cuomo when it came to elderly people in nursing homes. Ron DeSantis made it where you could not put an infected person knowingly into a nursing home. Could not do it. Just the opposite of what Cuomo did it. And Cuomo actually not only did it, but worse, once he realized what was happening, he continued to do it, and he tried to cover it up, man. I mean, I don't know about all the sexual stuff, but Cuomo should be put out to pasture and probably prosecuted for the old folks thing no matter what. And DeSantis' poll numbers are rebounding a year ahead of his re-election bid. A Mason-Dixon polling and strategy survey last month found him with a 53% job approval rating across the board. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. American people and Floridians, we can see the results. We see the results, period. Here's something that Republican Chair Joe Gruters, who I served under. He's a senator, but I served under him as chair. He just got reelected as chair of the state Democratic Party. He said, I think he, talking about DeSantis, is the odds-on favorite to be the next president if Trump doesn't run again. And I think he's absolutely right on that. A lot of things can happen between now and then. But obviously Donald Trump, if he decides to run, is the front runner. There's no doubt about it. Such declarations can't be discounted as parochialism in a state where two other Republicans, Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, nurture White House ambitions nationally. The picture is similarly encouraging. Well, let me just tell you, let me check my time. I got a couple minutes left, just long enough to play a video here. Marco Rubio, and I used to be a big fan of Rubio. He's making a little bit of comeback. I think his position on China is very strong. But make no mistake about it, Marco Rubio is going nowhere when it comes to being president, especially if, well, of course, if Donald Trump, but if Ron DeSantis, there's no way. Marco Rubio was crushed by Donald Trump, given a blow that, in my opinion, he will never, ever totally recover from. And here's the example right here.
My hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
Parents watching last night, kids watching too.
Every time I see that, I wonder about the measurement with the hands thing and what Marco, little Marco. Do you do it do you measure it this way with your hands, or is it this way? I don't know. I guess that's still an age-old debate. But one thing that is not debatable, Marco is done. He will never, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I don't think he'll ever be president. In fact, he may get hit by a hard primary this time around. And Rick Scott, let's talk about our buddy Rick Scott. I actually like Rick Scott, and what I'm about to show you, I'm a friend of Rick Scott's, but it's unfair to a certain extent, but it's the reality. Rick Scott, if you meet him in person, is one of the most personable guys you'll ever meet. And he absolutely has an American dream story. Really, there's just no other way around. But when he gets on TV, he looks like Lex Luthor. He comes across as a cold fish. He's not. He absolutely is not. He is a brilliant tactician. And he's in a great position as head of the senatorial election committee so he can meet all these donors. But he ain't going to beat Donald Trump. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form he could beat Ron DeSantis. A lot can happen between now and 2024, but Ron DeSantis, make no mistake, is on the upswing. So there is rumors out there, of course, he's running for re-election, that none other than Charlie Crist. Billy Bob tells me we got a picture of Charlie Crist. It may not be that favorable. It's actually really not him. It's Zorro the Gay Blade, but that's an inside joke. But Charlie Crist is talking about, because he's a congressman now, he flip-flopped Democrat from Republican to Democrat, and that he's talking about running against DeSantis. I don't want to make any bad luck here, but God help us. I sure hope the Democrats put Charlie Crist up as their contender against Ron DeSantis, because I believe Ron will be a shoe-in then. But we'll keep you posted on that. They started to talk about something Jeb Bush said, but Jeb Bush actually said he liked Ron DeSantis. Well, let me tell you, no one in Florida outside of somebody in the Bush family cares two hoots about what Jeb has to say anyway. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook, like it, share it with others. Remember our YouTube channel, spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Our sponsors, Big Daddy Unlimited, Patriot Threads, and also Recoil TV. You can see links to all of that above our show. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation, because, man, she needs it and certainly deserves it. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.